Hi, welcome to our latest Parent Council information video focused on our priorities. This one tonight is about school lets, and I'm delighted to be joined by Sandra Hasty from the letting team within Glasgow Life. So parent councils are given money from Glasgow City Council. This is part of the conditions that we have to, under legislation, give parent councils the money to be able to operate. So just to reiterate that is money that is given to enable parent councils to go about their work in supporting schools. So currently the figure of 400 is given to all parent councils, and all of their costs have to be met from that. So, for example, if you were booking 6 meetings per year, that would use up less than £100 of the money that you are given. Sometimes parent councils think that that's money we're giving them to pass on to schools. That is not the purpose of that money. So, paying for the let is an absolutely legitimate use of that budget, because we are suggesting that you pay those lets to be able to have your meetings, and that we support you to do so. The lets for parent councils are at the community rate, and Sandra will touch more on the conditions, etc. And all of our school let information and the rates is available via the link that's in the slides. It's also been sent out to every parent council in the city and to all head teachers. So, as I said, I'm joined by Sandra from the Glasgow Life team, because Glasgow Life coordinates lets on behalf of education services. If we were to give free lets, other education provision and services would be affected as a result. You may know that finance is really, really tight within education services, and we simply cannot continue to offer free lets. If that was the case, we would be cutting the 400. So, the choice would be to receive less as the overall grant and to pay for lets. But we've decided to allow parent councils to make those choices. So we cannot give free lets because there's costs associated with them. So we have continued to give you the money to pay for them. Primary school let requests will all be charged a room rate and a facilities management charge. That covers the cost of having a janitor and any cleaning too. Secondary schools have different operating hours to that of a primary school, and because the janitors are there, they are on site. There is no janitorial charge, only a room charge within contract hours, and that's why we've said to people it may be, if you're just having a meeting and your parent council is simply, going through its business as you would a normal meeting, it may be actually cheaper to go and have that in the secondary school. I often have to book lets, and I would always book a secondary school because the charge is fairly minimal. So we have encouraged parent councils in the primary schools to look at the secondary estate. Different when you're having events, but if it's just a normal meeting, you could book a meeting room or a classroom in the secondary school. So in terms of planning your lets, you'll hear a lot more from Sandra about, why these need to be planned ahead. We would encourage you to sit down with your head teacher at the beginning of the year when you're maybe deciding on your pattern of meetings, because you want to make sure that these are going to fit in with the school year. It's good for school staff to know ahead if they are going to be at evening meetings, for example. So it's good practice to plan everything out at the start of the academic year. And also, if you know that there's maybe other people using your school building, it may be the case that you will be able to split the cost of janitor, etc. So when there's more than one thing happening, some of the costs can be split. So if you know that you're having those meetings and those events, then what we would encourage you to do is to get those let applications in really, really early. You need to plan ahead also because you need to conduct a risk assessment, and there'll be questions on the let application form about how you are planning that event and your public liability insurance. That insurance would be null and void if the event isn't planned properly. And there are lots of examples out there of parent councils who have events and then they suddenly find that they haven't got enough helpers, and that's why that planning ahead helps on many fronts. It lets Sandra's team know that you need that, and the staff behind the scenes can do everything that needs to be done to make sure that janitors, etc., are in place. But also, if you're planning an event and conducting that risk assessment, you'll know how many helpers that you need, and having some on standby if people need to pull out. So make sure that you read the insurance document for any event and make sure that that risk assessment is robust. We are going to record another one of these videos on planning safe events, so I'm not going to go into that in any more detail just now. Another important aspect of this is that parent councils need to book their own lets. If it's a parent council event, they're in charge. They need to fill the let form in, and they need to satisfy the letting section that things have been planned appropriately. It is absolutely no longer acceptable for school staff to do that. You can't ask the clerical staff in the school office to do this for you, because they are not a member of your parent council. So it's this is something that we are having to repeatedly address, because a lot of parent councils are passing this on to others, and that makes me think that there may be not planning in the amount of detail that they need to. So there's a really important message around that, of somebody on the parent council actually booking that let directly with Sandra's team. And we would encourage you to have a generic parent council email address for this. For all admin purposes, it's really, really helpful. It's particularly helpful regarding invoices for lets, because sometimes the person who's dealing with this changes, they disappear, and the letting section don't have that generic email address that the new group are picking up. So we have said this time and time again, that a generic parent council email address, and there's lots of information contained in the slides, the parent council essential slides, where Leanne will take you through all of the steps required. And it's actually quite simple. We've had a few recently who have gone on and looked at that, and they've come back to us within the day to say, here is our new generic parent council email address. So we can't stress that enough. So over to Sandra now, who will take you through booking and paying for your lets.
Hi, it's Sandra Hasty from School Letting at Glasgow Life. I'll just reiterate some of the things that Catherine said as well, because it's so important to ensure that we got all the correct information to help you run your event as smoothly as possible. As we're saying, to ensure dates are available, book as far in advance as possible. If you can meet with your head teacher at the beginning of the academic year and get all the events into us in August, September, then it means that we can book them in for the whole year. It also means that if there are any other organisations in the school that may be impacted by some of your events, we can let you know, and if necessary, we can maybe move around other events to allow your booking to take place. In terms of organising the lets, we're assuming that there are conversations taking place at the schools about the events that are taking place throughout the school term. But unfortunately, we've had janitors not knowing where there's maybe school fairs taking place on a Saturday. If an invoice isn't paid until the last minute, or if a let isn't applied for until the last minute, that causes issues, so that there may not be a janitor available to work. So if we can encourage parent councils to speak to the head teachers, as we've already said, but to share that information in the school with the janitorial staff as well, just so that they're aware of what events are coming up throughout the year, especially where it's maybe weekend lets. So that's really helpful if that can be shared throughout the whole school community, so that that's bedded into the janitor's diary well in advance of even us confirming the let. For larger scale events, ones like your discos, we really require you to book a minimum of 4 weeks in advance. Some of the meetings are easier lets to accommodate, but as soon as you're looking at a disco or a larger fundraising event, especially if it's at the weekend, we have to make sure that there's janitorial cover available. Now, to do that, we have to contact the senior janitor that covers that area. They have to then find a janitor that's willing to work the hours that you want, and that can all take time. We also have to find out if it's a weekend let, a Friday evening, or over the weekend, if there's additional cleaning required. And again, that can take time. So the more time you give us, more notice you give us, then the more chance that we can actually accommodate the booking. If it's at short notice, we might not be able to get a janitor. So all school lets should be booked on the application form. The application form can be obtained via email from the team. It's quite a straightforward application, as you'll all have seen. It's been adapted over the years to accommodate schools and external lets. The more information you give us in that forum about your event, the less chance you'll have of us come back and asking more questions. So if you're putting fundraising event, if you make sure you detail everything that's happening. We do have to ask questions if some schools have, parent councils have been maybe bringing in fairground rides. We have to go to colleagues within Glasgow City Council to make sure that these things are appropriate to go into playgrounds. So if you're bringing in food stalls, again, you have to give as much information about your food hygiene and safety that you're putting in place. So the more information at the initial time of booking, then the quicker we can get that application processed. Now, one of the touchy subjects is unpaid invoices. So again, we need to make sure that you're giving us the correct information. The generic email address is great because it means it's going straight to the person that's dealing with it, rather than us using an email address for somebody that's left the organisation. Now, another reason for putting applications forms in well in advance is we have to set up an account on the Glasgow City Council finance system if you're a new parent council asking for a let, and that can take time as well. We then have to issue an invoice from our booking system, and that can take a few days to reach the finance system. Now, we ask for all lets to be paid 10 days in advance of the booking. Now, we would rather they were paid quicker than that, but we do, that's our minimum. If it hasn't been paid 10 days before the event, then we would be looking at cancelling it, because we have to then send booking sheets to the janitor to make sure that they're aware of everything that's happening within the next 10 days. And it means if there is any issue with a janitor not being available, it might be that we've organised for a particular janitor to cover your event and they've gone sick. It then allows the facility management team within CFM, who employ the janitors, and Amy within the secondary schools to ensure that there's an appropriate janitor there to cover your booking. So again, the quicker you make the payment, the quicker we will send the confirmation through, because we won't confirm the booking until the payment's been made. Now, we realise that things happen, that there can be changes to booking dates. If we've already issued the invoice, there will be an admin fee of £10 to change the booking. So if you make sure before you submit your dates that it's exact the dates that you do plan to use. And part of that planning is, as we said earlier, to meet with the head teacher and ensure that the school know exactly what you're doing. Because sometimes we've had requests for events coming in both from the head teacher and from the parent council, because each think they're organising the event. So just that quick chat at the beginning of the school year can mean that everyone at the school knows exactly who's planning what and who's running it, and it gives plenty of time for all the admin to take place and for the bookings to be put in place within our system. And again, the responsibility for lets lies with the person signing the application form, and that person should be attending the let. By signing that form, you're taking responsibility for the event, and that you will be the person that if there's anything goes wrong, that education or ourselves in Glasgow Life in terms of booking will come looking for more information. So ensure that when you're signing that application form, you're ticking all the boxes about risk assessments, that you make sure that you're following all the proper processes, because the onus does lie with the person signing the form. Now, really, I'm hoping we've covered everything in terms of the administration process. If there's ever anything you need to know, don't hesitate to email schoolletting@glasgowlife.org.uk, and we'll try and answer the questions as best as we can. We do have to sometimes take advice from education services, but any information in the first point of contact in Glasgow Life is that email address. And obviously you can speak to your head teacher and school staff about their plans for the year, so that you're not clashing with any bookings. So hopefully that's given you some information, and thanks for your time.